In this session we want to talk about pricing objectives. Now, price is the only variable or the only aspect of the marketing mix that generates a turnover for the business. So it's only price that brings revenue in. It's the only component of the marketing mix that generates revenue. The place, product and promotion aspects of the mix, these all involve a variable cost for the business, so they represent outgoings. So I suppose in that sense price is important. It's very important. In economics, price helps to balance supply and demand, but that's a more microeconomic interpretation of price, and while it's a very sophisticated analysis, for most practical business purposes, business people don't have the information necessary to clear markets in a refined way suggested by microeconomics. So instead what they do is simply add a percentage, a markup to the cost. That's generally what happens within business. So if it costs $100 to make something, they may add an extra $50 or $100 on and try and sell it for $200, let's say, which would be a markup of 100%. So they work out what the markup is, or what the market can take, and add it on and keep their fingers crossed. So pricing tends to be of that format, not very scientific in many areas and many businesses. Pricing must take into account the following factors. It must take into account the fixed and variable costs of the business, the competition from rival producers, the objectives of the business, and premium pricing. Well, the fixed and variable costs, it must cover fixed costs. It must cover variable costs, and it must make a contribution to fixed costs, and obviously cover fixed costs if the business is going to go into profits. But in terms of variable cost, if it takes $5 to make something and it's been sold for $4, well, that's not viable. If it costs $5 to make something and it can be sold for $6, then $1 is being made on each item produced, and that $1 may make a contribution towards the fixed costs, and eventually the whole business may go into profit as a result. So in setting the price, there must be some reference to the costs, the fixed and the variable, but in particular the variable. Those must be met, otherwise production should not take place. And of course price should be set with some reference to the competition. Other companies in the market producing similar products will set their prices in a way to outcompete the company, so that customers will be turned away from the product if it's too expensive. So that latitude in setting the price may be reduced by the number of competitors. And also, how important is the product to the customer? If it's not very important, then it can't command a high price anyway. Customers simply would not be willing to pay for it. And also, what are the objectives of the business? Is it the objective of the business to survive, to make profits, maximize profits? What exactly are the objectives of the business? And finally, perhaps it's the aspiration of the management to offer a premium product in a niche market. Well, that includes a lot of issues. It incorporates many issues associated with product design, investment, so that's not an easy task. Nonetheless, let's have a look at some of these in more detail. Let's just have a look at, for example, the pricing objectives. The business objectives may influence the pricing decision. For example, Is the company trying to profit maximize, sales maximize, satisfice, and so on? Now, all of these really come to us from economics, from economic theory. But profit maximization is very rare, and if it happens, it probably happens by accident. Putting it simply, business people don't know what the information is about their product and about the market to maximize profits. They don't know what the marginal revenue is or the marginal cost. They work with the figures that they can calculate, but they don't have that precision that the, if you like, the mathematics of economics would dictate must be in place before a company can profit maximize. So if they do profit maximize, they wouldn't even know they were doing it. It just may happen by accident. Or they may attempt to sales maximize, try to sell as much as possible. Try and grow the company as fast as possible to make the company into a large organization. But it may mean it's not a very profitable business. So there's an irony in that as well. Or satisficing. Satisficing means they're happy. They're happy with what they've got. They don't want to change. They don't want to grow the company. They don't want to profit maximize. They just want to make a living and get on with it. So they're not very ambitious. So the only thing we can really say about the pricing objective is overall the pricing objective of the business should aim to provide it with a profit. If it doesn't have a profit, then the business will go out of business. It'll go under. So it's important that the business makes a profit to survive. So it could aim to maximize current profit. But as I said, they don't have the information to do that, so it's very unlikely. It requires knowledge of marginal revenue and marginal costs, and those are very difficult to calculate, and certainly to have them up to date. It's a model which is very nice theoretically, very pleasing theoretically. The mathematics are wonderful, but in practice the information is not there. And even if it was there, they still may choose not to do it because it's simply too difficult. They may aim to increase revenue, increase long-term profits by increasing market share and developing ways to lower costs. Now that's possible. Trying to lower costs and increase market share, those are practical suggestions that business people may take into account when setting the price. They may set the price with the objective of increasing long-run revenue. The quantity of product, service sold to customers. Well, increase the number of products and services sold. In other words, grow the industry. Grow the company within the industry. This may mean setting a low price. The aim is to decrease long-term costs by gaining economies of scale. So if the company grows, costs may fall because it's now producing more. It's able to buy in bulk and negotiate discounts. It may have specialist machines made to make the product, which are cheaper at making the product because they're specialized. The workers produce more, so they become more skillful at producing the product, and their costs reduce. These are known as economies of scale, economies of size. So in stepping up production, costs may fall. And the next one is to look at maximize profit margin. Well, aim to increase the profit margin. Maximize is the term that is worrying here, because simply, as I keep saying, the management don't have the information to maximize. They may move towards it, but they can't keep changing the price because that will alienate the customer, and that will mean that the competitors would gain at the business's cost. Simply, they can't experiment. They must issue the price and stick with it. So there's limited scope for playing around with terms like maximize profit margin. In theory, it's fine, but in the practical world, the competitors will respond. They may adjust output so as to maximize the profit margin, but again, that may be unlikely as well, because even though they can change the output and keep the price fixed, that may upset the workers, it may upset the suppliers, it may mean that there's excess capacity in the business. So there's limited scope for changing the output even. Quality leadership. Well, price to product may indicate the quality of the product. The price of the product may be seen by the customers as an indication of the quality. If it's too cheap, they think it's a cheap product, it's not good quality. If it's very expensive, they might think this is excellent quality. So there's an issue about setting the price. And yet it depends on the product itself. If it's a mass product, it can't be priced too highly. The company may position the product so as to make it a quality leader, or try to give the impression that it is a superior quality. Of course, that would help marketing, but it means it still can't increase the price that much. It depends on the nature of the product, and it also depends on the response of the competitors. Partial cost recovery. Well, other sources of revenue, for example from complementary goods, may be taken into account. There may be some element of complementarity with other goods. I mean, for example, computer consoles for games may be relatively cheap because the games are so expensive. Or printers for computers may be relatively cheap because the ink or the printing material is so expensive. So there may be a possibility of pricing the product in a way that enables it to get sales, but then makes the profit subsequently on peripherals. Survival, well, it'll certainly be in the mind of the management to survive, to maintain the market share, and to try to avoid market decline. So it has to set the price to cover costs, and it has to do that in the long and the short runs. So the onus is on management to survive, keep the business running. The status quo will maintain stable profits by adopting a standard price and avoid price wars, avoid provoking the other competing firms. A price war can be mutually destructive. The competitor may go under, may go out of business, but it may also bring the business, the existing business, out as well. It may take out several companies as it goes down. In other words, if the price is too low, it may bring down many of the businesses that are in competition, and that's not good. So, pricing objectives, well, there are many. we've skipped across quite a few. It all seems to bubble down to survival, making sure that the business stays in existence. Some of the models that are put forward are very interesting and very powerful models, but they do require an amount of information, a level of information that is simply not available to most businesses and therefore are not appropriate. So when we talk about companies profit maximizing, it's very unlikely, very, very unlikely that consciously they're profit maximizing. Most companies will not even know what the profit maximizing level of output is or the profit maximizing price. And if they did know, and if it was possible to do it, they still may not be able to, because the competitors would intervene and adjust their prices and upset the price set by the company. So setting prices seems to be take costs and add a markup and keep fingers crossed that the markup is acceptable within the marketplace and it will generate profit. It's as crude as that. In the long run, that may be adjusted, and it may also be adjusted by having fringe benefits associated with buying the product. For example, entering customers into competitions or rewarding them with some bonus or whatever if they purchase. That may be a way, if the original price was too high, that may be a way of sweetening it. But essentially, I think it bubbles down to determining the costs, adding a markup. So that's all I want to say about pricing. It's complex, but it's complex if we look at all of the models, but it's simple if we think about it in practice. Although it's simple, having said that again, it still must be borne in mind that there are competitors and there are issues and the customers are not passive, and so it's a simple exercise but fraught with danger. That's all I want to do on this at the moment, so thank you for watching.